Hello, I'm Jerry Morris, and welcome to Biblio Connecting. Let me set up my PowerPoint presentation. Today, I want to honor my friend, Lee.J. Harrer, who passed away with his family by his side on April 14, 2021. He was one of my mentors, helping me not just by giving advice on book collecting, but as you will see, actually guiding me in my path in the book world. Here's Lee standing in front of one of his bookcases. His three primary collections were books about Brazil, books about Chicago, and books about books. Lee was born in Evanston, Illinois on May 12, 1930. After he graduated from Rippon College, Wisconsin in 1953, he joined the National Guard and then became an artillery officer in the United States Army. During his career in the military, he served a tour in Korea, a few stateside tours, a tour in Germany, 2 tours in Vietnam, and a tour in Brazil as a military advisor. He retired as a lieutenant colonel in 1973 and then moved to Florida, where his parents lived. He went back to school, obtained his real estate license, and then went to work for Merrill Lynch. Lee bought some books at a book auction in California, and after he moved to Florida, he sold some of the books he no longer wanted to Haslam's bookstore in St. Petersburg. He happened to go back to Haslam's a few weeks later and discovered that they were selling his books for 3 times what they paid him for them. So Lee decided to become a bookseller himself. And that's how the Midnight Bookman was created. He retired from Merrill Lynch in 1998 and devoted his full attention as the Midnight Bookman. After the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair in 1983, Lee got together with about 20 other booksellers and book collectors, and they decided to form a book club. Here is their very first newsletter dated July 1st, 1983. Here are some of the names of the founding members. Some of the names the founding members considered for the club. And they picked the Florida Bibliophile Society. Mike Slicker was a founding member as well, and he published a book in 1983, a bibliography of Florida fiction. Lee bought a copy and had all the founding members of the Florida Bibliophile Society sign it. Lee told me about the book the last time I visited him, but he couldn't find the book right off on his bookshelves. I sent his daughter Lisa a photo of my copy of the book, and if she finds it, we'll ask if we can acquire it for the Florida Bibliophile Society archives. Here's a cartoon by a rather famous cartoonist, Stu Hernicki, along with a short bio of Lee Harrer from the June 2002 issue of the newsletter of the Florida Bibliophile Society. Let's cover the cartoon first. Lee Harrer was the editor of the Society's newsletter in the 1990s and probably in the 1980s as well. But in May 2002, someone decided that FBS members would take turns in editing the newsletter. That lasted 1 month. Lee would cut and paste articles from a wide range of sources and seemed to know what would appeal to the members of the society. He would continue editing the newsletter until 2006, when he became the treasurer during my first stint as president of the society. I will now read the short bio. What you need to know about Lee Harrer, who was resuming the quarterly editor-publisher hat for the FBS newsletter. He was born too many years ago on Chicago's North Side, grew up in Situ, graduated Rippon College, Rippon, Wisconsin, 1952, commissioned second lieutenant in U.S. Army, found a home in the Army and homesteaded for 21 years in such garden places as Korea, Germany, Brazil, and twice in Vietnam. retired in 1973 and settled in Clearwater. Graduated St. Pete Junior College, a much better student the second time around, and obtained a real estate license. Managed an office for Merrill Lynch Realty, began selling books in the early 80s at the first Florida Book Fair. Co-chairman of the fair for 6+ years. A founding member of FBS and a past president, newsletter editor, etc., for too many years. Member of the Delaware Bibliophiles and the Caxton Club of Chicago, as well as several other special interest groups related to books and printing. Subject collections include books about books, Brazil, Chicago, England, London, and Christopher Morley. Looks for books on baseball for his wife. Lee was co-chairman of the book fair in 1988. Here's a note he sent to a dealer in Pensacola. Lee noted that Michael Jackson was on the bookseller's customer list. In 1988, Michael Jackson had been rehearsing in the Panhandle prior to beginning a national tour. Jackson had tried to purchase the skeleton of John Merritt, the Elephant Man, but was unsuccessful. The bookseller in the Panhandle gave Jackson a first edition of The Elephant Man by Sir Frederick Trevis, the physician who would introduce Merritt to London society. And no, Michael Jackson never went to the book fair that year. I mentioned earlier that Lee was guiding me in my path through the book world. I didn't join the Florida Bibliophile Society until November 2003. Lee knew that I too collected books about books, and he took an interest in me. He also knew that I collected Samuel Johnson and Association copies. And in September 2004, he gave me a copy of the latest issue of the Caxtonian, which contained other people's books, an article by a man who collected Samuel Johnson and Association copies. Only the Association copies he collected were books formerly owned by Samuel Johnson, James Boswell, and their contemporaries. Paul Ruxin was the man's name, and we were friends until the day he died in April 2016. Other People's Books was just one of the talks Ruxin had given. He wrote a book about some of his other talks. I wrote him and said that I wanted to buy a copy of his book because I would be giving talks before the Florida Bibliophile Society and could use some tips. Fast forward to the November 2005 newsletter to Points and Blurs by Lee.J. Harrer. I'll read it to you. Webmaster Jerry Morris has installed the text of his October meeting talk on William Togg on our site at www.floridabibliophilesociety.org. He has also posted the text of Paul Ruxin's talk on Samuel Johnson at our March 2005 meeting, as well as other Ruxin text material. There is now some very interesting reading on our website. Our computer literate members are encouraged to enter the site and participate in its activities. The forum is really underused and provides a means for our members to interrelate on bibliophilic matters. We all have questions which could be answered by other members throughout the website. Yes, the William Togg talk was the first of 5 talks I had given before the Florida Bibliophile Society. And yes, I created a website for the society. It even got Paul Ruxin to fly down to Florida and give us a talk on Samuel Johnson. On a side note, I really thought that the FBS members took Lee's words to heart because there was a flurry of activity on the FBS website, particularly between midnight and 3 a.m. The website was open to anyone to post, no password required. But I soon discovered that someone was broadcasting porno movies on the website between midnight and 3 a.m. Lee wasn't finished preparing the way for me in the book world. In January 2008, he gave me a flyer calling for submissions for a book the Caxton Club was going to publish. I submitted several association copies for consideration, actually 10 of them, and the committee selected a copy of a book formerly owned by Augustin Burrell. I attended the book launch party on March 11, 2011, and I sat at the same table as my friend, Paul Rexon. I have Lee.J. Harrer to thank for all of this. In the same Points and Blurbs article in November 2005, Lee contemplated about the disposition of books, including some of his own. Several thousand books would go to the University of Tampa around the same time as a proposed Tampa Book Art Studio was up and running. Lee had envisioned students taking classes in printing, publishing, and book design with printing presses and a ready reference library within reach. This would come to fruition in 2008 when he donated almost 2,000 books, when almost 4,000 books worth $300,000 to the University of Tampa to coincide with the opening of the Tampa Book Art Studio. He would donate an additional 2,200 books in 2014 and 2 more collections in 2018, bringing the total value of the books donated to the University of Tampa to $426,000. The Tampa Book Art Studio includes a working letterpress print shop with equipment from the 19th and early 20th century. The Book Art Studio library collections are centered on the age of letterpress printing with a special emphasis on private and independent presses. Examples from more than 500 presses are represented. The collection now totals nearly 8,000 items, including the Lee.J. Harrer collection of books about books, the J.B. Dobkin Peter Pauper Press collection, the Dobkin collection of 19th century letter writing manuals, and the Liz Feller family collections. Florida Bibliophile Society members had the pleasure of visiting the Tampa Book Art Studio in February 2017. Little did the Florida Bibliophile Society members know that at time, but that would be the last time they had the pleasure of visiting the Tampa Book Art Studio. I'll have more on that soon. In January 2017, the Florida Bibliophile Society invited students attending college in the Tampa Bay area to enter a book collecting contest. The executive committee of the Florida Bibliophile Society decided to name the contest the Lee.J. Harrer Student Book Collecting Essay Contest. And then Lee decided that he would provide the $500 first prize himself each year. Here is Lee presenting the $500 check to the first contest winner, Emma Gregory, who was attending Eckerd College at the time. We had her read her winning essay at the season-ending banquet in May at Biblio Tuscan Grill. Here is Autumn Howard, the winner of the contest 2018, reading her essay at the banquet. Here is Chloe Norris, the winner of the contest in 2019, receiving her award from Lee Harrer at the banquet. Both Autumn Howard and Chloe were students of USF, as was the winner of the contest in 2020, Vicki Intrikin. We had planned on Lee Harrer presenting Vicki with her award at the 2020 Florida Fabs Tour banquet at 400 Beach Restaurant in April 2020. We had invited bibliophiles from clubs across the country for the annual Fabs Tour, but the tour was canceled, and COVID canceled any other plans to have a banquet that year. We had to send Vicki her check in the mail. COVID also canceled the 2021 Lee.J. Harrer book collecting contest. The Lee.J. Harrer Student Book Collecting Contest wasn't the only program that Lee sponsored monetarily. In 2017, the Largo Public Library was conducting a bookmobile fundraising campaign And in June 2017, Lee Harrer donated $5,000 for the bookmobile campaign in the Florida Bibliophile Society's name. And when the Largo Library put tribute bricks up for sale from the old Bellevue Biltmore Hotel that would be placed near the library entrance, both Lee and the Florida Bibliophile Society purchased bricks. The year 2018 marked the 35th year of the Florida Bibliophile Society. And at our meeting on September 26, 2018, we honored founding member Lee.J. Harrer and recorded it in the October 2018 newsletter. Lee wasn't done donating books. In 2018, he gave his Christopher Morley and Peter Pauper Press collections to the library. And the October 2018 newsletter included an article on his Christopher Morley collection. 2019 was a busy year for the members of the Florida Bibliophile Society, who were planning the upcoming FABS tour to Florida in April 2020. Our visitors will get to tour the Tampa Book Art Studio and view some of the treasures of the Lee.J. Harrer Books About Book collection, or so we thought. In March 2019, Lee Harrer instructed me to take the Tampa Bay Book Art Studio off of the FABS tour list. Lee had learned that the University of Tampa was going to build a 5 or 6 story fine arts building on the very spot where the Book Art Studio was located, and that the studio only had weeks to move. Even worse, the printing presses were to go into storage because the university had no place to relocate the studio. Worse still, and we're still unable to comprehend it, apparently the University of Tampa officials do not consider printing to be a part of fine arts because there are no plans to include the Book Art Studio in the Fine Arts building. The books of the Lee.J. Harrer Books About Book collection will move to the library proper. As for the Tampa Bay Book Art Studio, it is permanently closed. Lee attended our last pre-COVID holiday party in December 2019, which was recorded in the January 2020 newsletter. Lee would grace the cover of the May 2020 newsletter when our editor wanted everyone to wish Lee a happy 90th birthday. In October 2020, I received some rather disturbing news from his daughter. Lee had fallen and broken his arm and was in a rehab facility. Then 2 staff members tested positive for the coronavirus, and the rehab facility was in lockdown. Lee was spared from contracting the coronavirus, but never fully recovered from his fall. Believing he was no longer capable of living on his own, his daughter convinced him to move into a nursing home until he got better. But Lee never made it home. On April 13th, 2021, Lee had an aneurysm that had ruptured, and he died the next day. Florida Bibliophile Society members attended the memorial service on April 30th, 2021. The executive committee of the Florida Bibliophile Society is currently considering the best way to honor our founding member, Lee.J. Harrer. I know what Lee Harrer would want: for the University of Tampa to find a location for the Tampa Book Art Studio. But I would change the name to the Lee.J. Harrer Book Art Studio. Now that would make Lee smile. Bye, Lee. And bye to everybody on Biblio Connected.